This book is a journey in itself of someone who is struggling with figuring out, I guess, their love language is maybe the best way to say it, or how they will love, and being confident in themselves and who they are. And it's very much based on my own journey and being comfortable in myself and being confident enough to put myself out there. So there's a little bit of that in this. So I would say if you're looking for a story that combines kind of the mental health, gender affirmation with a little bit of romance and crime thriller, what's the word I'm looking for? Actions, I guess, or scenes, then this is definitely a book for you. And it's also written from both of our characters' point of view, which I think is a little unique. It's a little different.
Welcome to the podcast. I have a awesome guest. You know, I have a lot of amazing guests, and today's not an exception by any means. I have Allison joining me today. Allison has written many things in her past, new stuff coming up in the future, and we get a chance now to sit down with Allison and talk about all things writing and all things going on in Allison's life. Allison, welcome to the podcast. It is an honor to have you join me today. Your smile is infectious, and I'm glad to have you here. How are you?
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm extremely excited to be on the podcast today. So thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so the nice thing is you're a podcaster, so I don't need to explain any of this to you. You know what you're doing, and I feel like I'm with my best friend. So this is really, really fun. So I hope we have a great conversation, and I hope that we can share more about you, your journey, and all that great stuff with the audience, because you know what you're doing. This is easy for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast that you do? I'd like to talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. First off, it's always interesting being on the other side of the mic. So it's a journey, I guess, going from being the one doing the interviews to being the interviewee. So bear with me. We'll see how this goes. But I'm Allison, or Allie is my nickname. I like to say I have two podcasts. At one point I had 3, and now I've combined them all down to 1. So I have the Fun with Friends podcast, which is all about what happens when you stop overthinking and you just start doing. So it covers a wide variety of topics from, I've had a bucket list coach on before. So, how do you put together your bucket list and how do you make those things happen? I talk to a lot of business owners, people who quit their corporate jobs, started their own businesses, and what that journey has been like for them. And then I also go on adventures with my friends, and we talk about those fun things that we do. So it's a wide variety of topics on the Fun with Friends podcast.
Nice. How long have you been doing that podcast?
Oh my gosh. I just had my 3-year anniversary of the Fun with Friends podcast. Yeah. So it has been glorious. I started that. It's my little podcast baby that started. I had a full mental health just breakdown. And one of the things I did to kind of help me get out of that funk was to start my podcast. So it's very special to me.
I love hearing that, because so many people start a podcast, they want to make $1 million in 4 weeks, and it's like, But when you hear somebody have a story about how a podcast helped them in life, and that's the reason why they did that, that's probably that's a podcast that I would be into for sure, because you're there to help people, to help yourself. And as an audience member, I would love to be a part of that. That's really, really cool. I love it.
Yeah, it's been, it was a way for me to push myself out of my comfort zone, which is the whole reason why I wanted to start it, was to kind of look at all the things I'd already always told myself I couldn't do that I wanted to do, and to start checking those things off. And actually several of the things on that list had to do with writing. So I've managed to check several of those items off of kind of my own bucket list because of the podcast. And it also has helped me quite a bit with interpersonal relationships, because I'm a little awkward and shy, and talking to people, especially strangers, is causes great anxiety. But my podcast helped me kind of come out of my shell a little bit. So it's done wonders. It's been a really awesome 3-year journey.
That's amazing. Okay, so we'll get people to go and check that out. We'll put links in the show notes to jump over to the podcast. It sounds like with 3 years of podcast, there's a lot of great content there for people to dive into and get connected with, right?
Oh, yeah. And now that I've combined all of my other podcasts under that one feed, I think there's over 100 episodes. And like I said, there's quite a bit of variety. Like at one point we did a movie podcast called Ya Streamin, where we talked to first-time directors and producers.
Nice.
So you have that content. You've got content from artists talking about what it means to be creative. And so, yeah, there's just a plethora of fun and interesting things that you can listen to over there.
Okay, this is great. Allison, where are you in the world? Where are you right now?
I am currently in North Carolina, which is a place I never thought I would be.
Really?
Yeah, never. I grew up in Nebraska, and like really rural Nebraska, more cows than people, one street light. And in my mind, North Carolina was kind of the same type of place as Nebraska. And I never, ever thought I would find myself here. But after years of traveling and living in different places, this is kind of where I've settled for now.
Amazing. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about your author journey.
Yes.
We talked earlier, you wrote poetry in the past, and you're going to re-release some poetry. But I guess it's the book that's out right now. Is it Fall into Midnight? That's the one right now.
Yep, Fall into Midnight.
Just right there.
Yes, just came out. It's where I have my podcast baby. This is definitely my book baby. It's the first full length book that I've released. So it's pretty. I'm pretty excited.
Okay, so take me back. You go outside, you go out to your mailbox, there's the box, your books are in the box. How does that feel to know that it's in front of you for the first time and you get to hold that book? Tell me, what does it feel like?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I have words to describe it. It's so exciting. It's like being a little kid at Christmas, honestly, or I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if other people experience this. It's something I'm starting to experience now from this is a whole other conversation, but happiness is a new emotion for me to feel. So I get like tingles in my head and my body, and I'm like, oh, this is what happiness feels like. And that has to do with being depressed, the majority of my life. And now I'm on meds where I can actually feel emotions.
Nice.
But it was full body tingles, just super, super excited to have this box that contains this thing that I have been working on for 2 years. It really is my baby that I've put all this work and effort into. And yeah, it's hard to explain. It was just amazing.
Was there somebody with you there when you opened the box, or was there something you did by yourself?
I opened it by myself. I was going to wait because, oh my God, this is such a millennial thing to say, I guess, or maybe just in the age of that we live in. But I was going to record myself opening the box and make a TikTok of it and everything. But it was was too cloudy and the lighting wasn't right. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll wait till tomorrow and then I'll have the right lighting to open my box. But I couldn't wait. So I opened it by myself. I had ordered 10 copies to give to like friends and family and kept one for myself, which you can see I went through it and then I realized there were all these like grammar and spelling errors still. And I was like, no. So my friends and family have a limited edition version of the book that has some spelling and grammar errors in it.
That's fun, right? That's a fun thing to see. You're like, but hey, right?
And it's one of the things when you sell. I would say probably other people who have self-published go through the same thing where you like put this thing out there and then it's in a different format and you're looking at it and you start seeing all these other, like these little mistakes where you're like, shoot, like, I should have fixed that, or, oh, I should have saw that before I published it. But the great thing about self-publishing is you can just go in, update your manuscript and then resubmit it and then it's fixed. So
true.
I was like, oh, just these first ones will have this mistake in them. And then it's kind of a fun little like thing I can give to people and be like, by the way.
So that's actually something no one's ever mentioned about self-publishing. And I'm glad you mentioned it because, if you're sitting on a box of 2,000 books, you have 2,000 books. So the fact you're self-published, that's kind of nice that you can just go in and make a quick edit and you're good. That's a huge thing. I don't think, again, no one's ever mentioned that. So I like that. That's great.
Yeah, it's one of the, I would say probably, in my opinion, maybe one of the best things about self-publishing, because you can also go in and change like the cover of your book if you want to. So from like this is where I get into like the marketing side of it, but from like a marketing aspect, like if your book's not doing well, you can always go in and change the cover and see if it does better, because the cover, a lot of times that's what is going to attract someone to the book to begin with. And you can do all that yourself and you don't have to worry about a publishing company, or house taking weeks or months to do it for you. You can just go in and, beep, bop, boop around and you're good to go.
And that's the official technical term, right?
It is. Beep, bop, boop.
We're going to have to Google that. That's great. That'd be a great t-shirt. Yeah, that'd be really nice. You can put that for your media company.
Yeah,
I love it. Really good. Okay, so the one thing we talked about before we record, which I'm really fascinated to talk about, is I have a lot of authors that come on and they have a pen name. When I pulled up your book on Amazon, I'm like, I'm going to be talking to Allison today, and I see Arden. And I'm like, oh. So in some cases, some of my authors come on and they use pen names because they have a story where they need to be anonymous. And I asked you the question, how we're going to do today, because there was one person where, for example, had I used her actual name in the podcast, it would have caused her potentially harm because she can't be known by that name. And we had all of our interviews together under that name. So I had to like mentally click over to her pen name for her safety's sake. And I'm like, so that made me like really nervous because I was so afraid I would say the wrong name. Again, I can always edit, but I just didn't want to put her in a bad spot. So when I saw the difference in your name in our meetings and seeing your book cover, I'm like, I have to ask just because it's really important. Your situation is quite exciting and unique. And I asked if we could talk about this and you said yes. And so I would love to kind of go down this path from Allison to Arden. Even within our podcast episode today, there's going to be a little bit of a talk about transformation. Can you kind of let us in on what's going on here and why the pen name?
Yes, absolutely. I am currently transitioning from female to male. So I identify as gender fluid or gender queer. And so I guess see if I can explain this in a way that makes sense. Like on most days, I don't identify as any gender. I just am. But there may be days where I'm feeling more masculine or I'm feeling more feminine, and I might identify more as male one day or female one day. And so that's where the fluidity comes in. And I recently have decided to start transitioning from female to male. And part of that is picking a name that represents who I am on the inside a little bit better. And Arden is a name that I have loved for the longest time. And I am lucky enough where I get to pick, see, my voice squeaked, where I get to pick a new name. And so I went with Arden, and I decided that I wanted to use it as my pen name because it fits with the overall goal of my books, which is to be representative of the queer community and to have like healthy queer romance relationships in my books. And this was kind of my little way of working that into this whole journey. And so I have written my books under my new name.
Can you tell me more about Arden?
More about Arden.
Arden as a person. I'd love to know more about Arden.
Oh no! Come on. Arden. So more about Arden. That's a loaded question. I don't even know where to start with that.
What is something somebody should know about Arden? Like, if somebody's going to listen to this podcast a year from now, and they know you as Arden, what do you see in the future for Arden?
I would love to, from a success standpoint, I guess, I would love for my writing, if to focus on that, I guess, if you want to, but I would love for my writing to really influence others to be themselves in some way, which is funny to say because they are fictional and they are romance and they're a little like, they're not smutty, but I want people to feel like it's okay to be who they are and to see that representation in what they're reading. Whether that's if you're aromantic, so maybe you don't necessarily have that instant attraction to someone or fall in love easily, where you need to know somebody for 3 to 5 years before you can have romantic feelings. Like, I want to represent that in my books. Good. So that people who, fall under the trans umbrella or the asexual umbrella have that representation. Like, that is a big thing that I'm very passionate about in my writing. And I think that's like I think that's the big thing, is just like having, how do I want to say this? Being able to see yourself in what you're reading. Because that's something that, like, as a child, there was nothing out there related, like, that was on any level to anything I was going through. And I think, if there had been some work out there, whether it was fictional or nonfiction, that had kind of explained things in certain ways, it would have made a huge difference to how I grew up and how, like, my mental health was and where just how I developed, I guess. So I'm kind of hoping Arden is hoping
Nice.
that the work kind of can help someone somewhere. That was really long-winded.
And it was amazing. And it's great to hear. The other question I have for you is, throughout your life and while you're writing as an author and in just life in general, is there somebody that's been there for you in your corner that's spurred you on and encouraged you? Like, I'm sure there's people in your life that really have kind of been there with you. What would you like to say to them? Like, if they're listening to this podcast, you have a chance to kind of address them and just kind of, thank them in a way. Who is that person and what do they mean to you?
Ooh, another good question. Oh, so many good questions. I definitely, so I do have to thank my mother to start with, which she's going through her own journey with me as we go through this, because she's supportive, but also this is very new and like a little confusing and yeah, can be very difficult to wrap your head around, especially as a parent, like with a child that you've raised that is suddenly like, by the way, I'm a completely different person in gender, and like, surprise. Yeah. So, but she's doing her best, but she really raised us to have a love and a passion for reading and writing. And that was something that she really fostered in me as a child. Like, she had me in like I was in writing competitions, and she would read everything that I wrote and just was really encouraging that side of me. So I grew up like very creative and writing a lot, and definitely have her to thank for that. And she's still like really supportive of my writing. Like, even with Fall Into Midnight, she was immediately like, where can I get a copy? And I was like, I don't know how I feel about my mom reading a romance book that I wrote, but here you go. Here's a copy of it. Enjoy. Yeah. So it's a little strange, but she's always been insanely supportive. And then I have a core group of friends. Shout out to especially Tara and Katie, who are always kind of on board with my wild ideas, no matter what they are. They're constant guests on the podcast. They are always encouraging me to do writing competitions, even still. Like, it's kind of moved from my mom doing that to encourage me to Tara and Katie, who are always down to send me writing things and be like, hey, here's an idea for this story, write this. And so it's I probably would not have written half of what I have if not for those two.
Yep.
And so yeah, I guess I just thank you guys for being my motivation, because without you, I definitely would not have written or done as much as I have.
Sometimes it's nice to stop and think about those people in our life that help us and push us forward. So I'm glad that, we can do that. Tell me, like, I'm on Amazon. I see your book right here. I can click and buy Fall Into Midnight. If somebody's sitting here on Amazon thinking about buying this book, mm-hmm. you as the author can now speak to them. What do you want to tell them about the book? Why should I click buy now? Why should I do it?
Because it's amazing. No.
Of course.
I would say if this book is a journey in itself of someone who is struggling with figuring out, I guess, their love language is maybe the best way to say it, or how they will love, and being confident in themselves and who they are. And it's very much based on my own journey and being comfortable in myself and being confident enough to put myself out there. So there's a little bit of that in this. So I would say if you're looking for a story that combines kind of the mental health, gender affirmation with a little bit of romance and crime thriller, what's the word I'm looking for? Actions, I guess, or scenes, then this is definitely a book for you. And it's also written from both of our characters' point of view, which I think is a little unique. It's a little different.
And you have any response from the book so far from people who've read?
Not yet. I've just sent it out to several people, and I'm excited to get some feedback. So we'll see.
So when you buy the book on Amazon, there's this little leave a review.
Yes,
that's
please.
Important, really important as an author, right?
Good or bad, I do not care. I want all the feedback.
That's right. And
it is so important.
Just like podcasting, everything, right? It's nice to hear back from people.
It is.
And I think more time I talk to authors, they all seem to say, please, when you're buying something online, please review it. Because then people get to see and hear your thoughts on it. You know, how could it be better? And like you mentioned earlier, if somebody's like, oh, there's an error in chapter 4, I'll go fix it.
Exactly.
Thank you for helping me, right?
It's also great to know like what characters you love, which characters you don't love, because I'm planning to write a sequel to this, and I would love to know like who do you bond with the most in the book? Maybe it's not our main characters. Maybe you love 2 of the side characters. Like, great, I will write about them. Like, nice. Let me know. So yeah, your feedback is, it's so important.
So we got to see the book again, please. We have to see the book.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you see, it's my favorite thing about having authors on and having the camera on is I get to see you hold up your book. It's great. It's amazing.
And I designed the cover and everything. Really? So yeah, it's very kind of a like noir vibe, crime, heartbreak, criminal underbelly, seedy nightclubs vibe. So.
And I love that you mentioned that you see yourself in the characters too. That's always one of the questions I like to ask is, can we get a sense of you in the book? And it sounds like that's what we're going to get, right?
Yes, both of the main characters are very much different parts of my personality. You could almost look at them as Allie and Arden and kind of the different voices of who I once was and who I am now, or who I'm going towards. So there's a lot of me in this book, definitely.
Okay, so Allie, like, is there something you'd like to say to somebody listening today who is at the beginning stages of your journey in transitioning? What would you like to say to them? Maybe if they don't have the support in their corner, you're the support now. What would you say to them?
Absolutely. I would say figure out what is going to make you happy and go towards that thing. And it's going to be difficult, and you're going to have people who definitely don't understand or don't agree with what you're doing or want you to change your mind. And it's hard not to listen to those people. Yeah. It's very hard not to listen to those people, but it's really just about your happiness. And a large part of finding that happiness is figuring out who you are. And if that's having top surgery or starting testosterone or changing your name, work towards that and find a community, because we are in the age of, the digital age. So you can find your people online and you can find that support in different areas. You can join groups and get that support where you can, even if it's not in person. That's something I've done a lot. I've joined a lot of groups on Facebook. I've joined local LGBTQ plus groups. You can find churches that are supportive. If there are tons of options out there. And you have the option to build a new supportive family if you want to, and if you need to. And that's another amazing aspect of this journey that you're going to go through.
Excellent. And if somebody has a question or they want to reach out to you about the book, about your journey,
anything,
either maybe they want to have you on as a guest, something on a podcast, anything like that, right? You mentioned earlier before we hit record, you're an open book.
Yes.
And, which is great, right? Because that means you can help more people, right? You're not afraid to talk about stuff, and
Absolutely.
and people will find courage just listening to you, and I'm finding courage having you on. So it's great.
I hope so. Yes, please reach out to me. I'm sure, Dave, you'll drop everything in the show notes, but you can hit me up on Instagram. It's probably the best way to find me on any of my Instagrams. And I would love to answer any questions that folks have, especially when it comes to your gender journey. Not a professional, but I'm going through it myself, so I can definitely share some of my own experiences with you.
In real time.
In real time.
I love it.
Absolutely.
So Allison and Arden, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And we'll put all the notes and stuff in the show notes. Would love to kind of come back with you. You said that you have another book coming out in the future. Please come back. Please promise me you'll come back. And we'll talk
this
about
has been
that.
So good.
Okay, we'll continue to work together. You're going to be on another podcast with me as well, which I'm excited about, on Living My Side Hustle. That's another topic, but we'll be having you back for that. I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation in the future.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dave. This has been wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
You're an amazing guest. You got a future in this podcasting thing, I got to tell you.
I hope so.
Thanks for being part of the podcast today.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. Hey guys, thank you for listening to the podcast. Jump over to livingthenextchapter.com, our website, and you will see a spot where you can leave a voice message. We'd love to hear your feedback. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to hear from you. So if you want your voice on this podcast, yes, that's possible. Go to livingthenextchapter.com, click the little microphone icon, leave a voice message. We'll insert your message into the podcast. Tell us where you're listening from. Tell us your favorite guest. Maybe there's a guest we should have on the podcast. Maybe you should be our next guest. Leave us a message. livingthenextchapter.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. Please share this podcast episode with one person. That's all we're asking. Meet you over there at livingthenextchapter.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Love to hear from you. Till the next episode. It's coming up right away. Be sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Thank you for supporting our guests. Great day.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.